In many cultures, whales are often depicted as heartless sea monsters. These monsters brutally destroy ships and treat the young sailors as their morning snacks. These myths are very different from each other. Some have massive horns, some have flat foreheads, some appear alone, some hunt in groups. Until the 16th century, when mankind entered the age of discovery, whales remained as mysterious demons that only appear in the myth told by sailors. Even nowadays, whales are often associated with power and fierceness, which makes sense since their body size already made the strong fortress in the sea. However, these ignorant sea sailors could never imagine how these sea monsters would bring home countless animals after their death. That's right. Although whales often live life on top of the food chain, their bodies generate massive ecosystems after their death, in a process known as the whale fall. First things first, not all whales eventually form whale falls. In fact, whale fall forms rarely. To begin a whale fall, the body must sink onto an ocean floor at least 10,000 meters in depth, known as the abyssal zone. This sounds much more difficult than it appeared to be. To be able to sink to the abyssal zone, the whale must rest in peace. Because if the whale dies, say because of predators, then his body would just be entirely eaten by the predators, leaving no scraps behind to a whale for. Even if the whale dies in peace, it is hard to ensure that scavengers won't eat on the corpse before it reaches the abyssal zone. Here's the thing. Animals in the ocean will hunt for anything they could because they simply didn't know then when their next meal would be. They don't care about whether the whale demanded a polite funeral. If they find something edible, they will just go to it and eat as much as possible before someone else discovers it. Therefore, the whale's corpse must cross various challenges until it finally reaches the abyssal zone and becomes a delightful meal for the inhabitants over there. After the corpse made it to the abyssal zone, it enters the first stage, mobile scavenger. Its name implies the stage simply refers to the process in which moving scavengers eat the soft tissue of the corpse. At this stage, the corpse is covered by a tremendous number of hagfish, rattlefish, livodid crabs, deep ocean octopus, sleeper sharks, and millions of amphipods. These hungry scavengers quickly devour the corpse. In fact, their consumption rate reaches 40 to 60 kilograms per day. This might not sound like a lot, but think about this another way. An average northern bottlenose whale, which weighs 5 tons and measures 29 feet in length, would be consumed within 2 months. An average southern right whale, which weighs 45 tons and measures 47 in length, would be consumed entirely within 4 months. These mobile scavengers would bite on every scrap they could find and leave nothing but bone lying lifelessly on the dark ocean bed. Nobody could tell these bones once belonged to a glorious beast that makes sailors across the world shiver in fear. Yet Mother Nature would not allow such a brutal end to a legendary creature. The next step in this funeral is the enrichment opportunist stage. In this stage, many smaller organisms such as worms, crustaceans, sea snails occupy the bones of the whales and feed on the nutritious sediments around the whale's bone. This process usually takes 1 to 2 years, and some unique species appear during this phase. One of these species is the Acidax worms, commonly known as zombie worms. These worms bloom like red spider lilies on the whale's remain and thrust their red roots into the bones. Inside their roots, symbiotic bacteria digest the bone marrow and present the nutrition to the worms. These zombie worms act like the flowers on the funeral and speak silently on the powerful stories of the whale's past. These organisms' activities on the corpse eventually form a thick layer of hydrogen sulfide on the whale's body, which sets up the final stage of this play. The last and the longest phase of the whale fall is the oleophilic stage, which literally means sulfur-loving. Only microorganisms would bestow a visit on the whale's relics in this phase. Their visit is quite long, reaching up to 50 years. They use the sulfur around the well to absorb the leftover fat within the bone for chemosynthesis. These bacteria form a thick, yellow mat of bacteria on top of the bones, glowing in the dark ocean, with a few tiny crabs wandering around it. This last guest of the funeral will stay for a long time, so long that scientists had yet to observe the entire process. After this process, the well is completely decomposed, and the only remaining left are a few small pieces of bones on the ocean bed. Scientists now suspect the fourth phase will completely decompose these last few scraps of the whale, but since the first stage takes such a long time, it will be a long time until we can observe this phase. And this is how the whale finally reaches its end. Become food for hundreds of different organisms. It might sound harsh, but I perceive this process a little differently. Think of the whale fall as a ceremony, as a magnificent funeral to mourn and celebrate the beast's legendary life. Different sets of organisms would visit the corpse in various ceremony stages and make a unique but equally beautiful scene around the corpse. The lively zoo made by the mobile scavengers, the romantic garden built by the zombie worms, the glowing mat of bacteria covering the corpse exemplifies the ocean's commemorations toward the loss of such a glorious beast.